The empath snaps not in an explosion of violence, but in a silent implosion, a collapse of the delicate architecture they have built to contain the sorrows of the world. You see, the empath is one whose soul was stretched too thin, like a membrane absorbing the cries of others. At first, this sensitivity appears as a gift, a shining ability to tune into the frequencies of another's suffering. But sensitivity without boundaries is not a gift, it is possession. It is as if the psyche has opened its gates to every wandering spirit, every fragment of unprocessed pain, every shadow cast by another soul. And when the empath snaps, it is not madness. It is the unconscious demanding recognition. I once encountered a patient whose case was more terrifying to me than any vision of psychosis. She was a gentle woman, admired for her compassion, beloved by all who leaned on her kindness. Yet behind her eyes, a war raged. In dreams, she found herself drowning in a sea of faceless people, each one grasping at her limbs, pulling her down into the depths. When she woke, she could hardly breathe. She came to me not with anger, but with exhaustion. She had been devoured by the projections of others. Every friend, every family member had placed their despair upon her, as if she were a vessel that could never break. But vessels crack, and when they do, the flood that escapes is not only theirs, but also the accumulated weight of countless others. This is why I speak of the shadow. For the empath, the shadow does not arrive in the form of cruelty or selfishness, but in the terrifying realization that their so-called goodness is partly compulsion. They serve others not only out of love, but out of fear, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of being unloved if they are not endlessly useful. And so the snapping point comes when the unconscious rebels, when the repressed desire to live for oneself tears through the mask of sacrifice. It is a frightening moment, because the empath suddenly glimpses their own shadow, the rage they denied, the selfishness they repressed, the violence they feared within themselves. In that case I mentioned, the woman's dreams shifted. No longer was she drowning. Now she stood upon a battlefield, holding a sword she swore she never wished to carry. Figures rose from the mist, demanding her help, her healing, her forgiveness. And in the dream, she struck them down, one by one, horrified, yet liberated. When she told me, she wept as if she had committed a crime. But I told her, no, this was the psyche's cry for balance. The sword was not literal violence, but the archetypal weapon of separation, the necessary act of cutting away what does not belong. The empath who snaps meets their shadow with terror because they have lived their lives imagining themselves incapable of harm. But the truth is this: no one is incapable of harm. The empath's snapping reveals that their denial of aggression has only driven it into the unconscious, where it festers and emerges in distorted form: burnout, illness, silent hatred. If they are to survive, they must integrate the shadow, must learn that saying no is not cruelty but authenticity. They must accept that the archetype of the healer is incomplete without the archetype of the warrior. Now, what makes this case terrifying is not only the suffering of the individual, but the archetypal resonance it carries. The empath is not merely a type of person, they are an image of the Christ figure, the one who carries the sins of the world. But remember, Christ too had his moment of breaking. In Gethsemane, when he cried out, "Take this cup from me." Even the archetype of ultimate sacrifice reveals the necessity of limits. Without the shadow, the empath becomes a martyr, consumed by the very people they sought to save. With the shadow, they become whole, capable of compassion that does not annihilate the self. I must also speak of the unconscious forces that move through such individuals. For often, their sensitivity is the echo of a childhood wound. Many empaths were children in chaotic households, where the only safety came from predicting the moods of others. They learn to extend their antennae into the emotional atmosphere, scanning for danger, soothing conflict before it erupted. This survival strategy crystallized into identity, but the unconscious never forgets its origins. The empath does not only absorb others' emotions, they are haunted by the archetypal parent, by the inner voice that commands them. If you do not take care of them, you will be abandoned. It is not merely kindness, it is compulsion rooted in trauma. Thus, when they snap, the terror is double. They fear losing others by asserting themselves, and they fear losing their very identity. For who are they, if not the healer? The listener, the one who feels. It is like peeling away the persona and finding emptiness beneath. And yet, that emptiness is the womb of individuation. The snapping is not the end, but the beginning, the point at which the old false self crumbles and the true self has a chance to emerge. In symbolic language, the empath snapping is akin to the tower in the tarot, the structure struck by lightning, collapsing in fire and ruin. To the uninitiated, it seems like disaster, but to the initiated, it is liberation. The false edifice must fall so that something more authentic can be built. The empath who integrates their shadow is no longer a sponge for the world's sorrow, but a mirror, reflecting truth without absorbing it. They become not a victim of compassion, but an agent of transformation, able to carry light precisely because they no longer deny their darkness. I want you to imagine, for a moment, your own dreams. Have you seen yourself burdened by others, carrying weights that do not belong to you? Have you felt the anger rising, the desire to cast it all away, followed by guilt that you could even feel such a thing? That is the voice of your shadow calling. Do not repress it. Attend to it. Give it form. Give it expression in your inner life, lest it erupt outward in ways that destroy you. Write it. Draw it. Speak it in therapy. Wrestle with it in prayer. Do not deny it, for denial only feeds the monster in the dark. I recall another patient, a man this time, whose life was dedicated to caretaking. He dreamed of a house with endless rooms filled with strangers who demanded his presence. He rushed from one to another until he found himself in the basement, where a beast lay chained. The beast snarled, half-starved, its eyes burning with rage. He told me he feared it was a demon. I told him it was his own vitality, imprisoned by his compulsive servitude. The empath's snapping is often the moment when this beast breaks its chains. It is terrifying, but it is life itself demanding to be lived. So I say to you, if you recognize yourself in this story, do not wait for the snapping point. Begin the work of individuation now. Confront your shadow consciously. Recognize that you are not only light, not only healer, not only giver. You are also one who desires, one who rages, one who can say no. And this does not make you less human, it makes you whole. The most terrifying case is not terrifying because of evil, it is terrifying because it reveals how the good, when unbalanced, become destructive. The empath who never learns to integrate their shadow is destroyed by their own gift. The empath who does integrate becomes a vessel not of depletion but of authentic love, able to stand in the world without drowning in it. The day the empath snaps is not the end of their story. It is the day the mask shatters, the day the unconscious bursts forth, demanding wholeness. And though it feels like death, it is, in truth, rebirth.